Hey, welcome to The Perspective. Mike Sherbino here. Today is just a little different kind of program. I'm here with two amazing entrepreneurs, and they're going to be sharing with you about an initiative that God put on their heart to start to empower and to help women navigate this journey called life. I hope you'll stay tuned for the program today because maybe God is moving on you to participate, to support what these two ladies are doing. You're going to be amazed at what you're going to hear because they have come up with a novel idea to start with a digital marketing magazine designed specifically for women. And so today, join with me as we welcome Brigitte Foisy. So glad that you're here. And Stéphanie Rourke Jackson. I think I said the names correctly,
yeah,
didn't I? Been practicing a little bit of the accent. And just don't call me Michelle. You know, I'm Michael, but I know there's a little bit of the French there. Ladies, thank you for being here on the program.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this was fun. And this is the quietest I've heard you in the last half hour.
We are talkers.
We are talkers. Well, with five daughters,
lead.
I'm almost tempted to go into silent mode and just listen. But I'm going to fight to hold some airtime today. You have launched a magazine called Be.
Yes.
I like that. Okay, what is the vision behind it? I'm going to go to you because you're the founder and the co-editor. So, Brigitte, you start.
Well, Be came out of a need, really. I was in a very, in a valley, like we say, and as Christians or as Christ followers, it's very hard to find resources that matches our faith to get motivated here in Canada anyway. We both come from magazine world, and like you have a tendency of looking up like the glossy magazines to learn about relationships and to learn about money and to learn about all the trendy topics. But when it doesn't really match your values and your faith, it's not useful information. So in that valley, I was looking for something that fits me, my lifestyle, and my beliefs, and I couldn't find anything. And then I reached out to Stéphanie and to a whole bunch of other ladies and said, what do you think about giving women a place where they can share their stories, because our stories are powerful, and share also what we've learned in life lessons and invite others to do the same in order to glorify God and just uplift each other and inspire each other to be the best we can be. Right?
So let me jump in for a moment. And in a moment, I want to come back and talk about the valleys because different things motivate us or create ideas within us. Stéphanie, tell me a little bit about your part in this new magazine. And then tell me a little bit of your background because you've already referenced the marketing. You've worked with magazines before, fashion, all of those things that are very important to my wife and five daughters, and also my observing eye. Tell me a little bit of yours.
Well, I hope that we have 6 new audience members of the magazine or new readers from your family. Yeah, I'm the relationship editor, and when Brigitte approached me about the magazine, or the idea that she had anyway, I fully embraced it because, like what she said, as a woman of faith and as a modern woman of faith who has many facets, and I'm interested in life. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I work, I'm an entrepreneur, I serve my community. There's just many layers, and couldn't find something that would be suitable through the lens of our Christian faith that spoke to all the things that we have going on in our life. And so she shared her idea, and I was like, go for it, girl. Like, yeah, I think that this would be totally amazing. And of course, then she looped me into it and said, well, I'd love to have you, join me and we could do this together. Previous to that, we had met actually through the fashion industry, and we were both on the same board, a committee, Fashion Group International. And so that's where we met and we fostered a relationship, neither one of us knowing that we were both Christians. But that we were immersed in a world of working, and she's a mom as well. and in fashion. And of course, I was in magazines. And so it's lovely to read information about, trends and things that are coming up. But again, if it's not anchored to your values, it's a little, either it's discouraging or it could be, disconcerting as well. So through my own desire of just being interested in people's stories, I'm very big on hearing somebody's story and knowing the why behind it, or the motivation, and where they came from and how they got through something, especially, a story that has brokenness and struggle in it, and how they came out through it. And literally listening to their faith stories just gave me such encouragement, because in my own life, I've hit several crises, but one in my relationship that was really brutal and devastating. And so kind of from that place of brokenness, I didn't want to feel I was alone, and I didn't want other women to feel like they were alone in whatever their story was, and didn't want to have that shame attached to it.
Let me come back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Because what is interesting to me is you're already referencing, you mentioned the word valley, and you've talked about hitting a crisis point as well. I would love to hear about those things that have shaped, and I know they're in your first release. So that's quite amazing in itself. So you've both been very transparent in that. When you talk about different value system, what was going through your mind? I think I do understand some of the values that are in secular magazines and the whole image conscious world that we live in. What are you trying to push back against?
I don't think it's coming from a place of pushing back, but of uniting with people of same mind and same faith.
Interesting.
I do think that our faith as Christ followers changes the way we see money. I think it changes the way we live out our relationships. I think it changes the way we live out our faith in the workplace, right? Like, we're in a world where I guess those values are not always welcome, or I guess are challenged.
Okay.
And I think we need a place where we can inspire each other and give each other tools of what's worked for me, because it could also work for you, right? Like, I think Stéphanie was the first person that asked me to publicly tell my story.
Wow.
And at first I was like, you crazy? And then I did it, and it was out of fear and crying and lots of emotion. But I was blown away by the number of women after that came and said to me, I'm in the same situation now, or, I can relate to you because, right? Like, you've been there. And then it's a place where we can meet, like, out of valleys to grow together, right? Like, I think...
Describe to me the valley that you were in.
Well, I was a pastor's wife and got divorced. And story short, like, that is not divorce, and clergy doesn't...
That's a hard one. A lot of different emotions from so many sides.
Yeah, it's not popular, and it's definitely not a topic that people talk about. And so I felt really alone, and plus my family's not here in Ontario. So I was literally alone in a broken marriage with a kid, and you're like starting a career. I was starting my business, and it felt like everything was falling apart. And I felt alone, and I felt like I had nowhere to look for, because divorce in clergy, like, there's no articles, there's no books about that, right? Like, where do you tap
there is
into...
now.
Slowly, but there's no tools that tells you, like, here's what I did and it worked, or don't do that, right? Like,
Sure.
So to me, it was a place where do you turn? Because magazine tells you, like, divorce is fine, right? Like, and I knew it wasn't out of my faith. It wasn't something that I was proud of, or that I believe that God has called us to do. But consequences of life happens, and that's a step I needed to do. And But yeah,
Powerful.
I did it alone, right? So I didn't want others to go through that as well.
We're going to come back in just a moment. I want to share with you today that in case you didn't realize that you're watching The Perspective, and here with me is Brigitte and Stéphanie, and they are launching a brand new magazine called Be, and it's for women. We want to encourage you to get the digital copies. We're going to share with you how you can find that in just a moment. But if at any time you're going through a struggle, and we've heard a little bit of Brigitte's struggle, we're going to hear one of the crises that actually hit Stéphanie in a moment. But these women are very real. They're sharing what God has brought them through. But we want to encourage you to get through as well. And the number you can call is 855-910-6297. There's people there on standby to talk to you 24/7. I hope you reach out, whatever it is that you're feeling today. We're going to be back in just a moment here on The Perspective. Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm Mike Sherbino, and today with me is both Brigitte and Stéphanie, and I guess founders, co-authors of Be Magazine. And you can find Be Magazine at just go to bemagazine.ca. Got that figured out?
Yes.
I can hardly wait to read it, and I'm going to encourage my daughters to be reading it. It's spawned out of your own struggles, your own awareness that many times there's not the resources for women to turn to say, how do I navigate through this situation? Stéphanie, you hit a couple crises in your life. Maybe just describe some of the things that were shaping for you as well.
Yeah. Well, the magazine is called Be, and it's about being, becoming, and new beginnings.
Being, becoming, and new beginnings.
New beginnings.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's integrated with your life. And I think what it does is it takes, your secular life and your sacred life, and it integrates it and brings it together.
Amen.
And my life as a woman, as a human in this world, finally became integrated after crisis. And it's not something that you hope for, but it was a very interesting journey, and one that I'm very grateful for. But it was being, a wife and a good friend to my husband and a mom to my kids. And in 2011, we had the shock of our life when my husband came home and confessed that he'd been having an affair.
Wow.
For 3 months with a member of the staff of the church that we were attending at the time.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
even deeper woundedness of like, how does this happen within a church? This isn't supposed to happen.
Well, you're talking about how it happens in the church, and you're a pastor's wife,
Mhm.
and you process all that, and
It doesn't line up.
no.
Right? It doesn't align with, God's intention and goodness and, all of the values that we adhere to. But of course, we're human. And, it does happen. Things like this do happen within the church. And it was shocking and devastating. Our pastor came over the very next morning after, I threw a few things and broke things and and some not choice words spewed out of my mouth. But anyway, again, human. So, anger and sadness and devastation happen to us, and that's okay. Like, that is okay to have these feelings. And our pastor came over, and I remember in the midst of trying to figure out how to move forward or just get up from the ground, he looked at me and he said, "Stéphanie, you have grounds for biblical divorce, but I really don't believe that this is God's plan for you."
Wow.
And
So
just-
you write about this and you share this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
lots
is-
of other topics. In
Yeah, lots
relationship,
of other
right? Like,
topics. Yeah. But that was a real eye-opener to the fact that, you go through things in life and your faith shapes you and grounds you. and it will protect you from the way in which you respond, but it doesn't protect you from hard things happening and struggles and adversity. Like, that's going to happen. So the opportunity of the betrayal that happened in our marriage gave me the insight to become closer to Jesus, to hang on to my faith, and also to look at the faith community as a support, which I did not think I was going to be able to gain, because I thought we were, shunned. There was shame. You don't do those things. And the exact opposite in our faith community happened anyway. We got prayed over. We had people showing up with food. We had people offering to take care of our kids, phone calls at 1 a.m., coffees, like just this enormous amount of love and prayer. And of course, people are going to judge because we just do that, but we did not feel that. And so that gave me a very different perspective on faith and hope. And through that, I realized that everybody goes through things. Everybody that I meet has some kind of either struggle that they've gone through, or a trauma, or anything that they are trying to manage. And for women, maybe I'm biased in saying this, but I feel like it's harder, especially because there's a bias placed on you, and you're supposed to be all of these things and manage it and multitask and juggle. And you come to a breaking point, and that was not, I couldn't do it anymore. I was out of control. I was out of my own
understand
control.
why you're the relationship editor. Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And, you caught me off guard. I had no idea of all you've been through, or you. And my mind is spinning as you just shared a little bit of your story. I want to talk about the magazine and how these stories have shaped your life. What are you hoping to instill in your readers? What kind of subjects are you going to cover?
There's a few sections in the magazine: relationship, which Stephanie handles, money, anything that has to do with finance, with Rosemary Harwood.
Oh, wow.
We talk about work with an editor her name is Amanda Stassen, and she's from the old guard of all the biggest retail stores in Canada, and she's now also an entrepreneur. We have a faith section, obviously, that's headed by a new collaborator, Melanie.
Yeah, Melanie Stevenson.
Who's an author, just published a book. And then we have a partnership as well with Sierra Love on Yes TV, and we love to share Melinda's content, because it is also a little bit about what we do. It's about, talking about the hard subject, like violence against women, like through the lens of faith. Like Stephanie said, it's from, I think, these challenging situation may be like how to deal with a colleague at work that's difficult. Like, how do we look at these situations through the lens of faith and encourage us to carry out the purpose that God has called us to as Christians? So that's our hope. And our hope is that the platform becomes kind of a platform where everybody can come and share their story and encourage and inspire each other.
That is so encouraging just to hear that. We only got about a minute and a half left. I'm going to give you the first 45 seconds. Share with our viewers today what is closest to your heart about this magazine. What excites you?
What I love the most about this magazine is, as Brigitte said, we are looking to other women to contribute, to share their stories, to be able to be a contributor and to spark inspiration with other women. So whether you are a CEO, an entrepreneur, a writer,
there's a place for you.
There's a place definitely for you. And we will have stories about faith. We will have stories about family, and also fun. It's not all heavy stuff.
Okay.
We will definitely have, and we do have some fun, and we have inspiration and motivation. And
I got to cut in, okay? I just have to cut in. Ladies, I mean, I feel like I'm at home. Everybody wants to yak.
Yeah.
What is so close to your heart as well?
It was that. It's providing women with a voice because
Yeah.
so many, like everybody, right? God said, in this world we'll have trouble. And also we'll have to, we have to celebrate. And I think we were built for community. So this is a place where people can come and just share what they're going through life, good or bad, and then just equip others, inspire others to fulfill the purpose that God has
Well,
called them
I'm
to.
inspired just chatting with both of you, and I want to thank you for coming on. I want to invite you to come back,
Thank you,
Yay.
and
Mike.
so that we can help be a partner with you. Folks, you're watching The Perspective today, and I want to invite you to go and read B Magazine. You can go to bmagazine.ca, and you're going to learn lots more about Stephanie and Brigitte and a whole other amazing team of writers and supporters. And at any time, if you would like to talk to somebody here at The Perspective, you can call 855-910-6297. I'm going to be back in just a moment.
Will you donate 2 hours of your time? Crossroads Prayer Center is seeking people with a heart willing to join in the amazing work God is doing through prayer. Providing over 1,300 prayer interactions daily, Crossroads Prayer Partners speak biblical truth and words of life over people's need. Join in God's transforming work through prayer and enrich your faith. Learn more at crossroads.ca/prayervolunteer.
Have you ever heard the Christmas story described as scandalous? Think about it for a moment, because really it is. I'm going to explain in just a moment, but first let me read to you from Matthew chapter 1, verse 18. And it says, "This is how the birth of Jesus the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. And because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law, and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, 'Joseph, son of David, don't be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She'll give birth to a son, and you're to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins.' And all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. 'The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel,' which means God with us. And when Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son. And he gave him the name Jesus. And Mary said, 'My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he's been mindful of the humble state of his servant. And from now on, all generations will call me blessed.'" You know, in our study yesterday, we commented that as God worked out his plan for the salvation of the world, his ways seem nothing short of scandalous. That's right, a Christmas scandal. Now, let me unpack it this way. Imagine how the common folk would view it. It would appear as nothing more than sex outside of marriage, a huge embarrassment for the couple and their families. And who in their right mind would believe the claims of a virgin giving birth? Imagine the emotional turmoil this young couple was facing. If there had been tabloids back then, can you imagine what they would be writing? But like Mary and Joseph, you and I have to choose either to cooperate or resist with what God is doing in our lives, regardless of popular opinion, or regardless of how we want to bring God down to our level and rationalize that our behavior is right, even when he says it's wrong. Each of us needs to be aware of the choices God gives us to either resist or surrender to his will. The great author C.S. Lewis said it this way. He said, there are two types of people. There's the first group who say, "Thy will be done." And then there's the second group who say, "Okay, God, have it your way." Are you going to be one of those people that say, "Lord, your will be done in my life. Doesn't make sense, but I'm going to trust you"? Or are you going to shake your fist at God and say, "All right, have it your way"? One of the great Christian leaders of the 20th century was a man named Bill Bright. He was the founder of Campus Crusade for Christ. And through Crusade staff around the world, the 4 spiritual laws, a little track, a little piece of paper that explained the way of salvation was printed. And then they produced the story of Jesus. It was simply called the Jesus film. It was seen and still being seen by over 4 billion people. And more than 150 million people have come to Christ and will spend eternity in heaven. Now, how did all that come about? Well, Bill Bright was asked why God used him and blessed his life so much. And he said this: when I was a young man, I made a contract with God. I literally wrote it out and signed my name to the bottom of it. And it said, from this day forward, I am a slave of Jesus Christ. Friend, it is easy to surrender if we truly believe we are loved by God. It is the love of God that brings calm to our hearts amid our waiting and our wanting. And for Mary and Joseph, surrender to the will of God was key. How interesting that their son would later pray in the garden before his death, not my will, but yours be done. A prayer that his mother had in essence prayed when she said, I am the servant of the Lord.
And I had a person tell me when I was 11 years old, it was a little morbid at the time, but I didn't really figure it out until I was a little older, but he said, grab a piece of paper and write down what you would want on your headstones. What do you want to be remembered as? And write that out. And then think about how you can spend more days living as that person. That will give you the clarity. And then when you do the clarity, then you build in steps of what you need to do each day to become that person. And then you determine how you want to impact culture or those around you. How do I live as that person to have that impact? And then what do you want to leave behind? Maybe it's the people, maybe it's a foundation. What do you want to leave behind? Because this is not a dress rehearsal. This life will kill you. We're all in. And at the same time, there's beauty in that. How do we recognize that and structure our lives knowing that we have a limited amount of time and we can't afford to waste it?
I'm thinking about what we've talked about, the Christmas scandal. But you need to know that sometime in the past few weeks, I again surrendered again to the Lordship of Jesus Christ in my life. Sometimes it's something we need to do daily, if not hourly, to say, Lord, have your way in my life. And as I've been revisiting Mary and Joseph's story today, I found myself drawn to the place of once again saying to the Lord, and maybe you're going to say this with me, Lord, not my will, but yours be done in my life. And I believe God is extending his hand and saying, let me take your hand as you make that decision to trust me with your life. Why not do it today?